Dark side of the stream, Mike the Intern and Jay Stevens. Watching documentaries so you don't have to. 104.7 The Cave.
104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 288 this week was my pick. Is your pick?
Yeah.
Is your pick Idaho Murders, College Nightmare on Netflix. Tells a story about what we all witnessed a few years ago, the horrific multi-murder of 4 college students in Moscow, Indiana, or Idaho. Idaho, Indiana, not Indiana, Idaho.
College town.
Very small college town. I didn't know that we had a Moscow in
I didn't know we had a
until
Moscow
watching this. I didn't even, honestly knew about the case, but did not know it was in Moscow until
I barely heard about this case. So when I watched it, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I mean, I kind of remember seeing in the guy's face that they had arrested for it. Yeah, it was a pretty nuts story, and a lot of questions, right?
Did you ever live in a house like this in college?
No.
You never lived in a multi-house?
I never went to college. No.
Well, okay, from the ages that you should have been in college, you never lived in a multi-dude house?
No.
Never?
No, it was either on my own or with a chick, yeah. Or I lived with a buddy.
Most of the time on the couch.
I lived with a buddy for a little while, but yeah, no, nothing. I never had that experience of
Was this the buddy that you argued with about triangle sponges?
No, but I have some great stories about that buddy for another time.
So I live, and the reason I bring that up is because that happened in a house like this, right? It was in a college town, a
bunch of rooms, people live in the rooms,
a
share a kitchen,
multi-person
right?
house where multiple people live, people come and go all the time, and how easy it would have been for at any point in my life where I lived in situations like that for someone to do that. People get robbed like that.
Because you have random people kind of coming in with people.
When you
buddies.
have 5 to 6 people living in the same house.
Yeah. You come downstairs,
And
hey, what's up, dude? Oh, I'm a friend.
It basically becomes a destination for people.
Yeah, party house.
Yeah. Then you have that issue.
Okay. I can see that.
And did I have it at both? I don't want to put those guys on blast because we're all professional now that I live with. But there were 2 houses specifically in my life that I lived in for at least a year or more that had at least 5 or 6 people inside where it was like that. And it was constant. It was crazy. The first one, I was young and I was with a bunch of older guys that were at their end of college. So I got pulled into that scene, which was, again, I had a really good time. But that was the house where I always tell the story about those guys that I went to school with that Halo 2 came out. And we had multi-Xbox system in the house.
LANs.
And we would play. But then, at 3 a.m, I'd be like, I got class at 8. I got to go to bed. And I go to sleep and I go to class. I'd wake up and those guys would still be awake. They failed out of college within 2 months, 3 months, which I was like, why are you paying for this? You guys are idiots. So anyway, that was the first house. Same thing. Anyone could have walked in at any time and messed with us. The other house that I lived on and was with 4 guys, and it was also ever in and out all the time. We all had our own. We were really close, but we all had our own circles too of people that would come and go. And I mean, so much so that it's not that I didn't trust them, but I had so much gear and records, even at that time in my life where I was.
Your buddies are cool, but your buddy brings.
I don't know who that guy. Yeah,
maybe that friend brings a friend who's a little shifty.
So I ended up in I think both of the houses. Uninstalling the handle that they gave, and I put in my own key.
You put your own lock because probably the door of these houses is always open too.
I put in my own key lock on it. Now, granted, if someone really wanted to get in, they just kick the door down. But at that point, if you're going to do something like that, I'm either there or someone else in the house is going to be alerted to the fact that you're kicking the door down.
Right.
So even though, like I said, luckily I never had any issues. The only time I ever got robbed was when I was living over in Roundtree, which was that was a whole nother story. But I wasn't living with a bunch of people. I was in a relationship, had a kid. It wasn't like I was doing anything wild or crazy at that time. It was just bad circumstance. But yeah, so back to the story. In Idaho, they're in a situation where I personally have been in for years. Half of my college career was that way.
So you could see how a stranger would.
And so you could see how it's plausible that this could happen. It's a miracle that it doesn't happen more often.
True.
Given how free everyone is. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot to the story and a lot to unpack. But we have a lot of insight into this too that I had no idea about. And it really, changed my whole perspective on things. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
Dark Side of the Stream, Mike the Intern and Jay Stevens. Watching documentaries so you don't have to. 104.7 The Cave.
Hey Stevens, Mike the Intern. It's Dark Side of the Stream, episode 288 on 104.7 The Cave, discussing Idaho murder, college nightmare. So
somebody comes in.
Basically, I mean, at this point, I think everyone probably knows the story.
Knives, 1, 2, 3, 4 people.
Yeah. Starts upstairs.
Gets out of there.
I don't really want, because I'm trying to figure out how to paint this out. I'll just say this. If you're not familiar with the story, which you probably, I mean, you may know, may not. There are some details.
First.
There are some details in which you might not know just as a casual observer, where you knew that this happened. You knew that it took a while. They ended up finding the guy who confessed. Done, right? This goes into the timeline of how everything occurred from the perspective of the prosecutors.
A lot of body cam footage too.
Police body cam footage, interrogation footage, interviews with survivors and or their family or friends, suspect family members. So, you know, it did fill in the gap for me when I was watching it, to where I thought that if your job as a producer or a director is to sell your perspective, she did a phenomenal job in that. Because it is literally by the book, the way the case was presented to the state, delivered, and then the conviction was handled, and then how they all felt like at the end of the day, they didn't have to go through a trial and relive all
I feel like they wanted to go through a trial.
Some of them did.
Yeah.
And you got the feeling that
they feel like he got off easy by saying guilty.
Because they never really knew what happened and they can't understand it.
Or why it even happened, because you don't know why.
There's no motive whatsoever.
No motive whatsoever. And you have to have a motive, right, in these things.
And so now, but I didn't really pick up on that until the Chris thing, which hold on. So, but what I'm saying is we watched this thing and, you know, I watched with Chris and we were like, yeah, I didn't know about that part. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I
wow.
learned a lot because
there were certain things about the case that I didn't know how. I knew that they had the DNA and I knew that they had done cell phone ping. I didn't know that he had left and they had to go get him in Pennsylvania.
A lot of stuff.
I didn't know that they had pinged him multiple times in the area leading up to it, which again doesn't really mean a whole lot. We'll get into that in a second.
But I just never knew why pick this house of these girls.
But also, again, the producer and directors of this documentary did a really good job of selling their case and putting it out and wrapping it in a nice tight bow and being done with it, because as a viewer, you're satisfied. I will go on record and say at the end of that documentary, I was completely satisfied with what I saw, other than the motive.
Okay, right.
Because obviously, but we can't get that. I'm talking about, did you feel like justice was served in the case about what happened to those people?
I feel like, okay, they did a great job.
We can't understand how he got the means. We can't understand the motive.
The only problem I had was like, why?
There are some
people?
Some people like the Joker said, that just want to watch the world burn.
Trippy.
Unfortunately, and those are the scariest individuals, where there is no explanation for the act. It's just, I'm going to act.
So we suggest watch the documentary.
So yeah, but I want to also point out that you go through it, and again, without knowing what we're about to go into in the next segment, you would think that, again, justice was served. Some of the family members didn't feel like there was closure because
the guy pleaded guilty. At first he said not guilty, then he goes, hey, I'm going to change my plea to guilty. No trial.
He actually never made a plea.
Never made a plea? Okay, gotcha.
Based off of what Chris said.
Well, so anyway,
the first thing was never really a plea. It was just then to a guilty plea.
So he says, hey, I'm guilty.
The plead out of the death penalty. And again, this is something else I didn't know. The death penalty in Idaho is death by firing squad.
Yeah, that's what they said, yeah.
Which, dude, I mean, like they also they pointed out in that interview, 200 people released in the Innocence Project, 27 of those people that were wrongly convicted and then released due to DNA evidence.
So this would normally
27% of them were confessions.
Right.
So again, that just because someone confesses to something doesn't necessarily mean that they're in. And so basically what happened is we have a friend.
Right, that's what I said. This would normally be where our documentary
we would have just talked about it
said,
and
hey,
been done.
Watch the documentary.
Had Jay not saw this with our friend Chris, who's a friend of the show from the podcast, he is the coolest dude ever. We talked about him in an episode, and then we met him in real life. Come to find out he lives close here.
Former FBI sniper.
CIA dude. He's the man. He's the coolest dude. And he's a guitar player.
He just
coolest
released
guy.
a book 2 months ago called Broken Plea, and it is a deep dive into this case. And let's talk about that.
And so basically, Jake gets a hold of me and says, "You got to watch this." And
he was on Dak Shepard's podcast.
At first, I was like,
last week.
I didn't. I was like, I kind of, I was like, yeah, I'll get you. I didn't really get it. And so yesterday, he kind of put the strong sell on me, and I was like, okay, well, maybe he is onto something. So last night, I watched the whole thing, and I was like, my jaw was on the ground,
mind blown.
And completely changes the entire look of this documentary and what it actually is saying versus what is actually not being said. And we'll talk about the next Dark Side of Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
Dark Side of the Stream, Mike the Intern and Jay Stevens. Watching documentaries so you don't have to. 104.7 The Cave.
Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens, Dark Side of the Stream, episode 288. This week was Jay's pick, the Idaho murders, college
nightmare.
Anyway, which is really weird to be talking about while there's a
young boy in the room with a snake.
Small child walking around with a snake in his hand and a director's snapper thing. What are those called, Tyler?
So this
That's right.
the case.
I did go to college. I just forgot.
Guy pleads guilty. You think end of the story.
So yeah, Jay Forces is on me, and he's like, "Hey, our buddy Chris is in this podcast called Armchair
Dak Shepard podcast.
Armchair Expert,
famous
Dak Shepard
guy.
And we got to watch. You got to watch. It's stuff he brings up is crazy, and so I was like, "Yeah, I'll get to it." Jay finally puts a hard sell on me. I start watching it. Okay, Chris is currently. Is he done with the Springfield 3 book? Do you know if he's done?
That's his next book he's releasing in fall.
So it's done then. It has got to be done if it's
he stopped that one to finish work on this.
So basically, he's been researching and diving into the Springfield 3 for years.
He's got that solved.
And
he thinks.
And I'm very cannot wait to hear that.
Right.
Also, he in the middle of being close to the end of this, he gets a call from someone, probably in law enforcement or FBI. I'm assuming.
That's heavy.
Who he has contacts with through his time in law enforcement. That says, "Hey, have you heard about this?" And he is like, I don't want to deal with this.
He said, you need to look at
And then eventually gives him a little bit, and he goes, "Okay." And so
he gets all the police
he
files.
Went through, I think, I can't remember how many terabytes of information, because he goes into like, they, as far as investigation in certain aspects of this thing, did a lot. That means like posts that friends did about it, phone records, pictures.
There's also a 4chan post. There was a 4chan post that I've found since I've kind of gone deeper dive on this thing. And this 4chan post talks about these 4 people, these 2 brothers and stuff. It was a very mysterious post. Somehow they say they filmed what happened. It's the dark web stuff. This is like a whole nother layer of rabbit hole I went down.
Didn't know about this part. But we'll talk
Chris
about that.
sent me on the rabbit hole. Is the problem.
So basically,
his name's Chris Wickham. The book is Broken Plea. If you want to get the book, or watch the podcast after this.
Yeah, definitely. You need to watch it if you're
Dak
interested in this
Shepard's
case.
podcast.
But the Cliff's Notes is real simple. The defense claims it's a 3-pronged attack. They have the DNA evidence of
the
sheath, cell phone, pings. And what was the third one? There was one more other thing.
Well, the timeline is whack. In the car footage, maybe? Or
so the car footage.
But the timeline.
But here are the facts. And this is why I love what Chris did, because he is absolutely right. He does not go in and say, hey, it's this thing, like the producers basically did.
He follows the
takes
evidence.
every chapter as a piece of evidence, and then he presents it and says, "This is the deal. This is what we're going to do." Blah 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 blah. The things that he brings up, I think, are extremely interesting and should be really, really looked into. First is the timeline. They basically say from about 8 to 10 minutes, all of this occurred. Yeah. 4 people were stabbed on the very minimum.
Enters the house
on the very minimum, 60 plus stab wounds on each victim. Okay, minimum. But not only that, this guy walks into a house that he's probably only, if he had been there once or twice,
in the dark,
it could have happened. But a 3-story house, he doesn't go to the first floor room or the second floor room. He goes to the furthest bedroom in the house, all the way in the 3rd floor, all the way to the back of the house, and goes there first. Then goes downstairs, works his way to the 2nd floor, and then, for some reason, leaves that person and exits.
And they didn't call the cops right away. There was hours before they called the cops. One room looked like it was tried to clean up a little bit. He points out a lot of wacky stuff, dude.
So, sorry, I had to give my son a look so that he knew that I was upset with him. But anyway, so the first thing is the timeline. It's all wacky. It's not possible.
There's no way anybody could do that.
There's no way that someone could have done that. Number 2, 8 hours of time went from the moment the girl saw the intruder to when the phone call was made. Also, they don't really explain that.
Crazy.
At all.
Crazy.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially if I was a female and I thought there was an intruder.
One girl was face to face with the guy and she didn't kill her.
They also called their friends first. They didn't call police because the kid went up there and found the bodies, grabbed a knife, thinking that he was going to have to defend himself. And the cops show up and he's got a knife in his hand.
Which right there, you're instantly, if you're a cop, you're put the knife down.
Dude,
right? Because you don't know what you're walking into.
I'm going to shoot you right there.
You don't just talk to the kid, hey, what's up, man?
The unknown substance on the blood on the 2nd floor. You go in the 3rd floor room, everything is as it should be. You go in the 2nd bedroom, everything is as it should be. But in the kitchen area leading up to the 2nd bedroom, there is an unknown substance on the blood. The investigators never tested it. They claimed that it came from an injury from her mouth and it was mixed saliva with the blood. But when you go to the room where she ended up, there's none of that.
Right. It
doesn't make any sense. They never tested it.
Points out a lot of wacky
They
stuff.
never tested it.
Yeah.
The DNA sheath.
It got moved.
Never tested.
Yeah. So there's Chris points out there's a lot of holes in here.
Also, the woman's story is that all she heard was female boots going up the stairs. Then she looked out the door, saw the guy, says, "I'm here to help," and then she takes off running, goes down in the basement. There is camera footage of the house next door that hears a woman scream, a man scream, and then a loud bang.
Somebody calling out
and
the
then
name of one
and then a dog barking.
Yeah.
So again, the stories aren't all matching up.
No.
And then whenever she was going through the Frank's hearing, which there was some legal stuff that I learned about when a defense attorney has to go to the Franks so they can understand what everything the prosecution has, how the trail went, all that stuff. And the suspect of the 4 brothers thing was like, what 4 brothers?
Yeah. Wait,
what does that mean?
Yeah.
So there's knowledge. So basically, after hearing all this, my perspective is that definitely needs to be looked into again. Also, it completely changed my viewpoint of the documentary, where I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Gave me some information to a
crazy, right?
complete nosedive to zero. Because it's like, then what are you doing as far as in a reporter?
You need to watch the documentary.
This guy down here in Missouri
podcast with Chris,
literally just sat in front of police files and then took the information, disseminated the information, and then presents the information. Yeah. How are you, a director who made this documentary, not do any of that?
He's done many times in other cases too. He's not like some armchair guy.
And also the white car thing. There were multiple suspects that also drove white cars.
Right, man. Right.
So he's not claiming that Brian didn't do this or wasn't involved in this. He's just saying there are so many more
open and shut.
There are so many more questions into this thing that we don't have answers for.
And the latest in the news now is that the guy wants to change his plea to not guilty.
Well, the fact that evidence wasn't presented, he definitely has a strong case to have that happen.
Because of Chris's book, how nuts is that going to be?
Well, it's crazy that no one stood up and said anything.
What if the defense calls Chris as a witness to present for them?
I mean, at that point, you gotta question who's doing the job.
And we'll get to our review next.
Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.
Dark side of the stream. Mike the Intern and Jay Stevens. Watching documentaries so you don't have to. 104.7 The Cave.
Jay Stevens, Mike the Intern, back in the studio one more time. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 288.
What do you rate the documentary?
The documentary, now after post watching Chris's interview, won. Like it's garbage because
Okay.
everything that I
So
learned.
what were you going to rate the documentary prior?
Probably
to?
about a 3, 3.5.
I probably would have gone 3, 4.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we watched Chris's on Dax Shepard's documentary.
Yeah, it's garbage. It's garbage town.
What do you rate Chris's podcast with Dax Shepard?
Well, I mean, I would have to rate his book because like everything. I mean, I knew
Yeah,
that
I
stuff.
mean,
It's him talk about,
I'm
but
worried
like,
to try and go that deep.
but like,
man.
like what I heard in that conversation that he had with Dax about the book that he wrote, without actually really diving into it, because I'm sure
The book
that's
has
just
all the
literally
files
just
in
the
it.
tip. And if I'm this animated about just the tip, then you know there's got to be a lot of stuff. And Chris ain't messing. I mean, what
I was almost going to text him to see if he could come down, but we were kind of short on time.
I just again like it. If you were into this show, look up Armchair. I mean, hate to not to push somebody else's stuff, but Dax Shepard,
Dax Shepard's
Armchair
podcast.
Expert or whatever,
Yeah, armchair
uh,
expert
with Chris Whitcomb.
Chris Wickham.
Watch that. It just came out. Watch it. It's going to blow your mind. There is so many more questions than we have answers
And
for,
he's
and I hope
got a book on
they
the
do it.
Springfield 3 coming out. Says he's got it. That
I can't wait to hear that. But again, like we're going to make Jay Stevens read a book.
We're going to have to make Chris come in here for that one.
Yeah, we have to.
All right. We are Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens.
Watch us do this every Thursday at 9 a.m. On
Dark Side of
Facebook
the
or
Stream.
YouTube.
That was Ollie with the
I
big
play
snake.
it on my show same time. Jay plays it at his show at 6. You can always download it as a podcast on our 104.7 The Cave app. I'm Mike the Intern. That's Jay Stevens reminding you.
We watch
movies so you don't have
so
to.
you don't
It's
have
Dark
to.
Side of the Stream on
We solve
104.7 The
crimes so you
Cave.
don't have to.